So, I've wanted to make a D&D YouTube channel for a while now, but I didn't want to do it until I felt like I had something to say about a subject. And I've been on the subreddits, I've been on the Discord, and I think I might have found that thing. So, I put some books behind me and rolled a bunch of dice on the table. I think I'm a D&D YouTuber now. Hello, welcome to Natural One. My name is Adam, and today we're going to be talking about traps. More specifically, I'm going to give you 4 ways that you can improve traps. But firstly, I want to talk about why I don't like them. I don't like them because they're random.
That's so random! Or is it?
Now I understand, Dungeons & Dragons is quite random at its core. You roll dice, and depending on the outcome, different things happen. I know that that's random, but you have a lot of choice as a player. You choose where you want to go, you choose who you attack, you choose what spell to use, you choose how to solve the puzzles, but that kind of choice doesn't come into play with traps. Most DMs run traps like this. You are walking through a corridor, the ground feels quite weak and it falls beneath your feet. You fall, you make a dex save. Okay. Roll a 3, which is a failure. You fail to grab hold of the ledge, you fall and take X amount of damage. That sucks. That really sucks. Because I've had no control over that. If I'm a big barbarian, I'm going to fall down. And it's kind of, just feels so cheap. It feels like such a cheap way of attacking and hurting your players. This doesn't mean traps are bad. You can still use them. But you should definitely implement some of the things I'm about to say to make them more interesting, to make them more fair. A good example is, imagine Frodo, the hobbit, the hero hobbit, leaves the Shire and he hits a bear trap and he bleeds out and dies. Not really a fun way for a hero to go out, and that could happen in your D&D games if you're not careful. Number 1, just don't use them. Now this might seem like a sarcastic point just for the video, but it isn't. Like, I've been a DM for 10 plus years, I ran hundreds of games, online, offline, and I just don't really use traps that often. There's other ways that you can be creative in a dungeon without using traps. Now I know that most books and most one-shots have them, but it's just not necessary. I've never had a player come up to me and say, yeah, that dungeon was cool and all, but it would have been even cooler if the ground fell and we died. Like, it just doesn't happen, and you can create tension in different ways, you can be creative in different ways. You just don't have to use traps. I've been using them a lot more now that I've started improving them with these tips I'm about to give you. But if you feel like you don't like traps for any reason, or your players aren't enjoying them, or the rogue, it's getting super boring every time the rogue checks for traps because he does it in every single room, just don't use them. Simple, easy. Number 2, the click rule. So the click rule is awesome. If you're going to take any pieces of advice from this video, take this one. The click rule is the best thing that's ever happened to traps. What it does is it takes the decision making and gives it to the player, which is exactly what we should be doing in D&D, is letting the players make the decisions. Here's how it works. Instead of opening a door which trips a tripwire and then having your players make a dex save to try and roll out of the way, you open the door, you trip the tripwire, and then you tell the players. There's one of 2 ways. You can either tell them they've tripped a tripwire or just say that they hear a click. That's where the click rule comes from. And then you say, what do you do? What this means, the players might want to jump out the way, just like you would have thought, so they make a dex save. Perfect. But a paladin might say, well, I'm going to raise my shield, just in case. And the crossbow then will hit their shield. You, instead of making a dex save, you would roll an attack roll against their AC to see if you hit them, or see if it just breaks on their shield, whatever. Somebody might want to do something really cool, knowing a bolt is coming, they might try and catch it out the air. The DC will be much higher, but that's fine because they have made the decision. That's what we want. We want the players to be making their choices so they don't feel cheated, and they feel like they are in control of the game, which they very well should be. And it just makes it more interesting, and each time there's a trap, something different might happen instead of just make a roll. So definitely, number 2, the click rule is certainly something you should be implementing immediately. Number 3, the clue. So this is another thing I implement if I'm going to use traps, and that is to give the players a clue that there's traps coming. It's all well and good having your rogue run their dagger through the framework of a door or throw dust around to see if they can find tripwires. That's cool once or twice. When your rogue is checking every door and every room for traps, it very quickly just shatters your narrative, makes the dungeon move very, very slowly, takes glory away from other players, and it's not something you want. So what you want to do is give them a clue. Here's an example. Maybe the players walk into a room, there is a corpse on the ground with a crossbow bolt through his chest. Underneath him is a broken tripwire that you can see go from one end of the room to the other. Now the players know that there's tripwires ahead. Well, at least there was one here, why wouldn't there be more ahead? Now if the players are looking out for tripwires, it's because they have thought about it, they have solved the puzzle, they've cracked the case, which makes them feel better and them be in more control, which is exactly what we want. So give them a clue. Another way you can do this is a pattern. So for example, every time they walk between two statues, they trigger a tripwire, or they almost do. Now, every time they see statues, they might become a bit weary of them, start checking them for traps. Makes much more sense, the rogue checking for traps now, because there's been a clue and they're solving a problem. So, number 3, a clue or a pattern. And finally, number 4, just be more creative with it.
What's your favourite idea? Mine is being creative.
How do you get that idea?
I just try to think creatively.
This is really, really important. A trap shouldn't be a thing that just hurts you. It should be a thing that changes the game. Here's what I mean. Instead of a collapsing floor that falls into a pit of spikes, why not a collapsing floor that takes one player and it's like a slope and they end up going 2 levels below the others in the dungeon? Now it's not a dungeon crawl anymore, it's a rescue mission, which is a lot more exciting. The players have split up, you haven't just done damage. Maybe instead of a chest that you open, it shoots acid in your face, it's a chest that you open and it ignites a small fire behind it. You're in a wooden building and the wooden building is beginning to burn down, and you have to now decide whether you're going to put the fire out or take the treasure and escape. Makes it more interesting. Be creative with what you're doing. Don't just use boring traps that do damage. We don't want a crossbow bolt that just does 5 damage every time somebody goes through a room. It's boring. You can make it more creative. I would definitely try and use less traps that are more creative than more traps that are just boring. And that is it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Do you know any other ways that you can improve traps? I DM all the time. I DM like 3 or 4 times a week now. I'm very, very lucky. So let me know down below in the comments if I can improve traps anymore. Maybe think of another subject that we could dive into, and like, subscribe, I don't know, all this YouTuber stuff. I'm not a YouTuber yet, but maybe one day we'll play more D&D. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, every good story starts with a natural one, and I'll see you in the next video.